Art Online Memory Defrag was a fan favorite, but mobile games are designed to simply maintain their audiences for as long as possible, and once they fizzle out enough, they close their doors. Especially when you pit it against two other games of the same brand fighting for relevancy. And so, Memory Defrag was shut down on August 30th, 2021. Fast forward just over a year, and alongside the closure of Art Online Unleashed Blading, previously known as Alicization Blading, as well as Alicization Rising Steel, we got the release of Art Online Variant Showdown on November 21st, 2022. It was effectively a 3D version of Memory Defrag, a familiar and engaging yet simple gameplay format as an arena fighter gacha game, marketed as an ambitious SAO Games 10th anniversary mobile title, with the renowned Integral Factor producer Takeuchi P at the helm, taking place in the brand new world of Cross Edge that is a culmination of various SAO game worlds taking advantage of the series' nostalgia to its absolute maximum, with characters all appearing in their iconic attires. But thus far, it has not only failed once, but the second attempt following a relaunch after over a year's worth of maintenance to rebuild the entire game is not looking so hot either. With Integral Factor now looking forward to outliving another mobile SAO title that was supposed to succeed it, one has to ask, what went wrong with Variant Showdown? Welcome SAO survivors, it's me Gamerturk, and obviously I finally want to talk about Variant Showdown extensively. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually do love this game. I still play it daily, although we can argue on the definition of playing a mobile game in this day and age. I'm one of the mods of the official SAOVS Discord server run by Bandai Namco Entertainment Inc. That's Bandai Namco Japan in charge of mobile games. I help with the community, try to help the staff however I can. I create promotional videos for the game on my own terms for myself, because I truly feel when the algorithms reach a point of suppressing any content concerning SAOVS, you need to take a step back and consider whether your social marketing is up to the task or not. So I decided to take it into my own hands with the resources I personally have available to me. On the flip side, I have my private feedback, which is probably already more than what's wanted from me over there, and it's probably somewhat annoying for them, even though they're always really kind in response. Thank you very much. I have my public feedback visible on the feedback channel of the Discord server. And then there's the fact that the one time the game had a major meaningful change, and SAO Games as a whole in fact, was when I ended up raising a shitstorm over the Asuna and Alice pissing contest stories, which was admittedly not my intention. I didn't want to raise a shitstorm. I had merely shared my frustration about these stories portraying both characters at their most despicable ad nauseum. And because I have a good grasp of the community, the tweet decided to blow up, resonating with the said community, and since then, none of the games, including console titles, have ever had a single Asuna vs Alice pissing contest story at all. So, good job, we made a difference. Now, developers, I know you have your user metrics internally and I don't, but sometimes, just sometimes, hearing feedback out can be useful before it causes two of your mobile titles to close their doors, one being temporary, because you waited for the data to be obvious enough, which, credit where credit is due, it was at least pretty conclusive data with barely any players left, so that was a goal achieved, I guess. So, I'm a player here. I consider myself to be fairly in tune with things. Even choices I don't like, I have the ability to separate my opinion and my analysis from each other when presenting things. I do know here and there that you, Bandai Namco, do generally, let's say, take me seriously enough to evaluate my opinions at the very least. And to be frank, with the echoes of Aincrad trademark looming over the SAO mobile game scene, whether it is actually a future mobile game or not, I don't think I'll have too much time to just go all out regarding Variant Showdown anyway. So, why has Art Online Variant Showdown failed once and it is failing again? Well, not enough people are playing, of course, obviously, but why is that a thing? The game is, genuinely fun to play. As I said, it's a 3D version of Memory Defrag. It's as fun as a typical mobile game can be. We're not talking about full console games running on mobiles, of course, nowadays. Going from least important to most important, according to my judgment. Well, for starters, the game, especially in its original launch, simply rely too heavily on nostalgia. I see the merit in it, 10th anniversary title, makes sense to have it that way, but by the time the game had launched, the nostalgia pandering of SAO was already on the level of, as a good example, 2010 Sonic the Hedgehog with Green Hill Zone. It caused the world of Cross Edge to lack any kind of identity, subsequently leading it to not feel like a novel idea. All characters inexplicably appearing in their most marketable outfits was the cherry on top, something I harped on so much that I feel like the rewritten story of the relaunch, having an entire story section explaining how they have their outfit, was kind of directed at me. Thank you, I did appreciate it. I like it when you ground concepts that are easily seen as desperate marketing moves within the story itself, making the inclusion feel more natural than a marketing move. But the game, as well as story, was strictly designed around the nostalgia pandering, as was necessitated by the concept of the game, taking place in arenas from all previous worlds alongside their enemies. While the story rewrite definitely avoids a lot of these issues, which was something they could reasonably change, the entire concept of the actual game, it remained. And you may think Memory Defrag was just the same, and you would be right, but the core concept of Memory Defrag was literally just retelling the story of the anime to begin with, alongside random event stories, on top of the fact that Memory Defrag released at the highest point of SAO's popularity, early on in its popularity period as well, not during a massive content drought with fans already drowning in nostalgia. There is not much of a solution on this aspect. Admittedly, the game is what it is, and they definitely did a good job with what they could in the story rewrite. If there's any intention to salvage the state of the game, a remark that I will return to quite often here, they really need to double down on Cross Edge. And as I said, main story is doing a decent job, but it's too slow, and to be honest, there are bigger issues in the game anyways. And story is good for maintaining a player base, not for acquiring them. Unless you pull an FGO, but FGO was a miracle recovery on its own, that shouldn't be expected of any game really. That bigger problem I mentioned being the game itself. I'll be perfectly honest, the game does not feel welcoming in general to new players. Although I feel that way towards many mobile games nowadays, maybe I'm becoming a boomer, who knows. As a veteran player who had a lot of hoarded materials from the original release, my entry to the SAOVS relaunch was really smooth, but I, as well as many other veterans, were clearly the culprit behind the terrible balancing of the material economy. Because we had tons of everything had to cost a ton in return, leading to a terrible progression curve for newcomers who were constantly starved of every material. And let's take a step forward, the entire game just feels like a graveyard of ideas that were haphazardly integrated into the game to create some chase for players without any future sustainability plans for said inclusions. SR Plus characters, super rare plus characters, were introduced with the relaunch. Characters, I give it too much credit, Agil, a single character, was added as a chase reward for the new feature called the Labyrinth. 3 tiers of this labyrinth, you fight bosses back to back in each tier. It's your typical floor climbing, but very short, easy to digest. It was really fun, albeit very repetitive, as it only featured 5 predetermined bosses at each of the 3 tiers, and within a couple months we cleaned up the entire reward store, Agil, and a bunch of other good rewards that it had. And the labyrinth has been simply sitting there collecting dust since, because the main store for this feature was never refreshed, never got new stuff added to it, has nothing to do right now, it's just there taking up space. They kinda sorta evolved the idea into this endless dungeon mode that gives you permanent stat boosts in the game with random bosses every step of the dungeon, and I guess that will stay the same forever as well. Battle Royale hasn't been touched since it was a wreck anyways. Even in the original launch, it just exists to exist because it has been developed for some free rewards every 2 weeks, which is something at least compared to the completely abandoned Labyrinth. The gameplay itself came out at a state that everything exclusively revolved around generating combos to receive damage multipliers, so the game was designed around having perfect runs. In fact, that is the same concept as Memory Defrag. There is nothing wrong with this. However, Memory Defrag was clearly aware of potential balancing issues that would lead to between skilled and less skilled players, so their damage boost was capped at an extra 50% damage. It sped up your progress reasonably in a given stage, but you could afford tanking and getting your combo broken without any issues here and there, and sometimes it was even more beneficial. Variant Showdown multiplied your damage by up to 5 times, basically making unbroken chains a requirement. Not to get top spots in ranking, no, don't get me wrong. To clear basic content, you were required to have unbroken chains. The gap between a skilled and less skilled player was already massive, and content had to be balanced around the ceiling to pose some sort of a challenge for those players. So everything was balanced around having 5 times the multiplier. It was already feeling quite broken as a decent player myself. I genuinely expected them to nerf the combo boosts, but eventually, to my surprise, they doubled down on it, and now you can get absurd amounts of multipliers, like 40, 50 times your damage or something. I don't even know, because unless you're trying to solo multiplayer bosses, you can't reach them anyways, which only made the content further inaccessible if you weren't a top player. I'm a decent player myself, but I approach the game with a casual mindset, since I'm sick of games with power creep that uses rankings to justify their hot new most powerful unit or ability. An event ranking boss takes me around 20 to 40 seconds typically. Top players can clear them within 5 seconds, whereas an average player cannot even get a clear because the stages are locked into 3-minute timers and you're expected to just maintain your combo endlessly. As a result, your units, or strategy for that matter, do not dictate whether you can clear content or not. It all hinges on having a perfect run with a bajillion combo multipliers so that you can even damage the boss properly, because up until 5x or something, you don't even make a dent right now. I'll be honest, it's a thrilling experience. It's what really makes the game fun to play. If you're actually a skilled player, the harsh reality is that it is an incredibly frustrating experience for a majority of casual gamers, which is the typical user of a mobile game, to bang their heads against a boss they cannot even scratch. The excessive reliance on this mechanic is leading to average players to not even be able to have a hope of defeating the challenging bosses. They can purchase the latest banner characters advantageous against the boss, they can max limit break it, give it tip-top equipment, all the best abilities, but when you balance the boss around a decent player having a 54 times damage multiplier throughout the entire run without having it break, for me, even having it resetting once mid-stage is nigh irrecoverable. Imagine how it is for the guy who cannot reliably reach 5x or even 10x. Don't be misled by the footage I'm showing here. I purposefully took on a ranking multiplayer boss, but even then, with a top team, this is a 9-second clear. I lost my combo once towards the end, and it was completely unbeatable at that point because I lost it once. The power delta is simply too large and is impossible to reasonably balance across the entire player base. That's the major highlight of adding features and never looking back that the game suffers from. Sometimes the solution is just trying to play your own game. Maybe Takeuchi P is great at the game and has no issues with the difficulty delta himself, but Does he want to keep running the endless dungeon after 60 floors when it is so tedious? Does he ever go back to the labyrinth I mentioned earlier? How does he feel when he has 300 equipment in his inventory and is trying to sort and filter through them? Does he maybe get frustrated when he wants to change an ability card on a character and has to sift through 200 ability cards due to lack of good filtering options? Does he ever give his phone over to the skilled debugger next door in the office who is maybe not that great at games to give the difficulty a try? I genuinely don't think the major pain points of SAOVS isn't clear to the eye if you just play the game. They are very much obvious. Sometimes, just sometimes, you do not need to wait for your audience to start yelling to realize there maybe are some glaring problems. Especially when your core audience is Japanese players and are just too kind and respectful to provide harsh feedback and just silently leave your game instead of providing any feedback. But let's move on to the next point. The goal with the relaunch was to recoup players and reach new audiences using that wave. How are you gonna do that? The game was literally shadow launched, where we had to notify the staff ourselves that it was, in fact, live, which at least prompted an official announcement tweet shortly after. And no, I'm not saying that because I had any indication of this from the staff. Me being a mod in the SAOVS Discord server just allowed me to personally ping and notify them about what was happening. I'm saying that as a player who saw the game release, without any notice whatsoever. And do you think you're gonna catch the eye of someone doom scrolling Twitter with captivating visuals such as these template announcement images? You made a decent investment to bring voice actors to perform the entire main story, and nobody even knows because you share updates with these uninspired images. When you have a new banner, do you really think you'll convince people to give the game a try when you share a character image, half of which is covered behind text with black background? You'd think anyone's gonna tap on these event announcement images to read the extensive explanations and rewards. Don't get me wrong, this is very informative and is great for players. But your problem is that you failed to capture the players in the first place. You do not have the players to speak to. Your social media strategy right now should be on capturing players, bringing people into the game, because you cannot engage or activate players you do not have. What you're doing is the kind of strategy I'd expect from Integral Factor, that has a dedicated and undying player base who are interested in what the new skill offers or what the specific rewards they're gonna get from an event. You, Variant Showdown, need to actually increase your reach so that people may want to give your game a try in the first place. And you are not going to achieve that with billboards filled with text that don't mean anything to the people who are not playing your game. And to be frank, they do not mean much to those who do anyways either, because your game is all about fast-paced action, and these vague descriptions based on values we are not at all sure how they interact with each other to begin with are all trumped by "let me test this out myself in-game, no clue what these numbers come down to." It is exactly why my Variant Showdown promotional content is performing better than your official English account, despite me having less than a third of its following. And what do? You put low resolution images into your game and not even include story illustrations anymore, so your fans, your players won't be able to create some buzz themselves for your game either. I'm sorry, but this is a full-on collaboration of a blunder between your social team and the game team. In fact, the lack of story images shoots the social team in the foot as well, because now they don't have an interesting visual to share on their socials and are forced to create a mishmash banner billboard that looks like an ad rather than a story teaser people would want to experience in full. You heard me say this before, but unless you're just letting the main story run its course before announcing shutdown, as everyone is predicting at this point due to Echoes of Aincrad, same as how you waited the main story to run its course to announce the extended maintenance 2 years ago, then make basic changes to your social media strategy to catch the eye of your audience and draw them into engaging with you/your game by doubling down on your strengths. Number 1, you have fully voice acted main story. Let people know.
パスだ。悪かった。ライラは大丈夫なのか。確かにあの男の攻撃は。あの男はキリトに何を言ったんだ。ミハエルのことは何か言ってなかったか。クロスエッジには関わるなという言葉を残してな。ミスター P はあのプーかもしれない。エプシロンのことか。エプシロンがそのプーを雇ってミハエルをさらったのか。そんな、だって。ソードアートオンラインVariant Showdown.
I do these story PVs for a while now. I let you know specifically, hoping you'd copy me and take it off my hands for the benefit of the game. And also, I'm sure you would love having control over your own marketing rather than some third party other than you doing stuff without consulting you. It takes me very little time to record these from the game and edit them into this format. I'm sure you having the source assets and an actual media department rather than a single person with a 6-year-old mid-range gaming laptop that is crumbling apart, you can do it even more efficiently than I can. Number 2, show your game to people. I can't believe I have to say this. It is an exciting game, so show it to people.
私の本気を見せてあげる。ソードアートオンラインVariant Showdown.
Preview your banners with gameplay. All I can do is boring trial stage for my own previews because goddamn the rates are so low that I haven't been able to pull any featured character for 3 months now. But you can actually show these advantageous characters fighting event bosses, new stuff, exciting stuff. Game showing it being a game. Imagine. If people see your game looking exciting, then they may want to try it out. And please, when you do, export the video correctly at 60 FPS. None of these weird issues of recording at 5994 FPS and then exporting at 30 FPS regardless, uploading it as a 60 FPS preview, which in reality was just an extra stuttery 30 FPS video because of all the mismatch and false export that you did for your pre-release announcement. Number 3. The artists on your team are incredible. SAOVS has the crispiest art style that I have ever seen. Whether if it's someone's favorite art style or not, that is subjective, but they are very high quality. Bring back story illustrations, not just for main campaign, but also for event stories, and then use these illustrations in your social media posts without covering half of them with text and black backgrounds. You can cover like 10%, maybe 20%, depending on your placement of things, but let them shine and catch the eye. This also includes having proper high quality HD illustrations for your character and ability arts in the game, so people can take screenshots and share them, which is basically free viral marketing that you can get from your fans. I don't care if you're scared of data miners or something. None of the data miners are left since the relaunch because no one's interested in the game. But if Integral Factor can do it, ask your own producer Takeuchi P, because it can, then so can you, Variant Showdown. Number 4. Do the little questions and stuff you used to, engagement stuff. No idea what happened, probably cancelled due to low engagement, but the low engagement was already the symptom of your social media strategy, not the cause. These were getting more interactions than your average advertising posts. Your social media looks like a boring ad page that nobody wants to look at, which is, in fact, why nobody actually looks at it. It starts with you. So again, unless you're just waiting it out until you can announce a shutdown in a year when you announce Echoes of Aincrad or something, time to have a look at your communication strategy, or, at least think about having one. No, sharing boring ad billboards with nothing enticing about them is not a social media strategy. If someone posts the words SAOVS and feel like they're being suppressed by the algorithm because the algorithm dictated it's a low popularity topic, That is your problem to solve. Not mine, not the fans', yours. But as things are, there are things even out of reach of your hands as well, Socials team, because the biggest problem of the game since relaunch, not the gameplay itself, not the drop rates from the banners, yes, they're terrible, but no, we have more important stuff. This has been going since the original launch. It is the technical state of the game. People cannot play the game if the game literally does not run on their device. I think this is a bit of a critical info here. I was literally on the verge of dropping the game entirely about a month ago, having suffered through the atrocious performance of the game on my Samsung Galaxy S10. Sure, it's a 6-year-old phone, but it was just a 3-year-old flagship phone when SAOVS was first released, and it was still atrocious back then. I'm not a developer, so I'm not gonna take the high horse here into extremely specific comparisons of this game runs perfectly, so why can't SAOVS? I'm sure it's a bit more detailed than that. But there's also the reality of the market. The fact that on a mobile device, nowadays you're competing against Genshin Impacts or Fortnites of 2020s. There should absolutely be no way for an arena fighter like SAOVS with its limited scope to require a cutting-edge flagship phone or a gaming tablet or iPad to be able to run at an acceptable level. Given that you spent over a year rebuilding the game from scratch during extended maintenance, it is unfathomable to me that this one aspect was never put as the ultimate priority. I don't even have words to stress this, or rather, if I try to be blunt, it will dilute the message and it will kind of sort of sound ugly. But the core of the message is simple. If your game isn't running on devices, that means people cannot play your game. I'd say that includes blocking emulators, there's a huge player base there, but I don't even want to open that door because your dedicated community members on the official SAOVS Discord have been diligently bringing up the cheaters to your attention since relaunch months upon months ago, and cheaters still keep stealing top spots in ranking events and subjugation rankings on a constant basis to this day, every single week and event. But at this point, I said most things I wanted to say. This is by no means an exhausted topic. My entire education and experience is on product development, innovation, and marketing. Yeah, I'm plugging that in, so I do in fact have a lot more to say, suggestions for small incremental improvements as well as large sweeping changes, both in your product and in your communications/socials. But it will get too boring for YouTube if we go that route. I have too much to say, too much little stuff to say. Now, does anything I say hold any value? I know it does. You showed and in fact told me numerous times that it does when you actually want to change things around. But admittedly, I think you already made the decision to wrap the game up during the April-June stretch, and the current low period is just a symptom of the production pipeline still pushing the existing development backlog out without any actual intention of salvaging the game or adding to it. Going one step ahead, I do believe the relaunch was just an attempt to save face solely because this was the 10th anniversary game, and it would be shameful to have it fully die within a year of service, while you more or less knew the relaunch would not go much different than the original one, with that most important compatibility and performance issue unresolved. Who otherwise shadow releases a game with even their community staff unaware that the release was happening and had no announcement to make on socials for said launch? On that bombshell of a personal opinion, I guess, this'll be it. I was always happy to see issues I brought up personally or, suggestions I made in my videos make a difference for the series I love, so this has been another one of those. We'll see if it makes any difference, or is it already too late? We'll see. Thank you for watching, and stay cool.